Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. As always, we are coming to you guys from the greatest country in the world, the great Republic of Texas, deep in the heart of the Lone Star State, Dallas, Texas, to be more specific. And if you guys aren't already a subscriber, please consider smashing that subscribe button as well as that bell icon so you guys don't miss an episode. Whether we go live or put out recorded shows, which I haven't really done too much of lately, but probably will and end up doing that on the weekends and such. Also, don't forget to smash that like button as well. It'll really help us out with the algorithms and stuff. If you guys are on the go and want to check us out, you can find us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, as well as iHeartRadio and Amazon Music at Truth Defender Podcast. If you guys love what we do here on the show and you're feeling generous, consider sharing the show with a friend, family member, or colleague. Just take it easy at work because you know how people get. Hopefully not too much nowadays. It's kind of getting a little looser. So hopefully you won't have too much of a problem. If you guys have any questions for myself or our guests, as well as guest or topic recommendations, you can shoot us an email at thetruthDefender1776@gmail.com. You can follow all our social media, which will be linked down below, as well as the link tree, which has all the links to everything there, as well as personal Instagram accounts and all that kind of stuff, which, I mean, I don't really post too often, like every day and stuff like other people do, but I mean, still the happenings and going on. So what we do on a daily basis outside of the show. Had a crazy experience this past week, which we'll jump into here as far as accounts and being banned and all kinds of crazy stuff. So we'll get into that. So it was interesting. I'm pretty sure everybody's been up to date. I think we're about a little over a week or so since January 20th. All kinds of executive actions are being signed and all kinds of things are rocking and rolling. One of the ones that I guess I kind of found a little more interesting than I was actually speaking with our guest today about on the back end. So on the 23rd, obviously 2025, President Trump signed an executive order mandating the declassification of all records related to the assassinations of President JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, obviously, JFK's files were semi kind of released previously as well. Obviously, quoting, national security and all that kind of stuff. They held on to a lot of other stuff. A lot of stuff's redacted, and you know how that kind of goes when they release all kinds of files. There's not much you can really read in there. It has like bits and pieces, and sometimes entire pages are completely blacked out. And maybe it has like the word "the" on there, and then everything else just black. So, which is kind of pointless, obviously, but it's something. So we was speaking with Jason on this when this all kind of happened, and we were like, well, it was signed, right? But how much is actually going to be released? Probably not much. What are they going to pull back on and be like, oh, well, we couldn't actually release these and this and that because of whatever reason. So we just figured that we'd have Jason back on to kind of discuss all that and maybe a little bit of what's been going on since we last spoke. It's been a while. He was kind of incognito there for a bit, but now he's back with a vengeance. Jason, how's it going?
So far so good. Yeah, you this whole question has sort of broken down. This whole event has broken me down to two questions. The first one you've already addressed, which is how much stock do we need to buy in Sharpie, because we're about to see the most redacted documents in human history. But you know what? Maybe not, right? I mean, that's maybe not. Maybe Trump's, again, once Kash Patel gets in there, and maybe he's going to be like, nope, we're just going to push this out. I can't imagine them just saying, here's absolutely everything that we've got.
Right.
But you never know, right? You never really know. But like I said, my expectation is to see Sharpie stocks jump sharply.
Yeah, it's weird because, like I mentioned, all this kind of stuff happened. I was like, oh, cool. And when he signed it, I was like, he's been kind of promising this stuff for a long time. And I mean, we're all like, oh, it'd be cool to get our hands on the rest of it. But like, if anybody knows anything about redacted information and papers and all that kinds of stuff, I mean, there's nothing there. So like, even if they were to release the papers, all of them, if they're all redacted, it doesn't mean anything. Like, so on one level, I get the people's enthusiasm, and I hear a lot from other people like, "Oh, he's finally going to release the papers and this and that." I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." Like, but like deep down inside, like I know, yeah, it's cool. Even if they release every single one, all they have to do is claim national security for whatever reason, and it's just not there. Like, that's not going to be anything. Like, we'll have all the papers. That's great, but I mean, we're not going to be able to read anything that's on there. So,
right, exactly. And
really difference.
Here's the worst part. Even if he's like, okay, I just want everything released. What if half the paperwork's already redacted and like that's the only copy that exists now? Is this or redacted copies? Or it's like, hey, we're literally releasing. These are the originals of everything, but they've been redacted for 50 years, and this is all that exists now because they destroyed the non-redacted documents. Like that could literally be something that happens. So again, until it happens, I'm not going to make. I'm going to withhold all judgment until we see it. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm just kind of expecting to see a lot of documents that might as well have just been printed on black cardstock.
Yeah. I mean, so like we're talking about the previous, I guess the first one, was like 92 when they tried to release those records. The second one was in 2017. Was it? Yeah, it was 2017.
It was 2017. And Trump even said, yeah, I can't release this because, and he even said, I saw them. If you saw what I saw, you'd keep it, you'd hold it back too. And I do think this is a difference between the Trump then and the Trump now. They made their own worst monster with this, with what they've done with Trump, because now he was trying to play ball. He was trying to be the reasonable businessman. And let's face it, he's a moderate at best. There's only a few things where you're like, he's basically just Bill Clinton with a few better positions on a few things. But that still made him radical. And then when everything happened to him over the last 4 years, he's like, okay, screw it. Let's go scorched earth. So I do think he wants to release a lot of this stuff, but I just don't think they're going to let it happen. Like not everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming he thinks like if there's anything that's seriously harming to the country, it'll be redacted. So he doesn't really care. He's like, yeah, like that's what everybody wants. I'll just do it. Even though there's not going to be anything in there for anybody to see.
Yeah.
And that's probably the position that's the position that I think they're taking, is just like, if there's anything that shouldn't be released, like it won't be as far as it being redacted. So they don't really care. It's like, yeah, we'll just give them the papers and that's what they wanted. And he can just wash his hands and be like, look, I got you the papers and it's not my fault that everything's redacted. Like, like you got them. So sorry.
Yeah, that's what it is. Exactly. I did hear Kash Patel. I think it was on Beck or something. He was talking about it. He said he'd seen the papers, and what he said was really interesting. I can't get out of my head because I think it ties into the second part. The second question I have in my head about all of this. But he said the information. He said the information that you want, because everything, all the conclusion. I want to get this precisely correct or as close as I can, because it was really interesting the way he phrased it. The conclusion, all the information that's out there, is sufficient to come to the conclusions you need to come to. But the reason they're still classified has nothing to do with the reasons everyone assumes. And I thought about that because, again, over the last couple of years, working with Dean and looking into that initial, it's not technically true that the term flying saucer comes from the Kenneth Arnold sighting in 47, but it's popularly true, and we'll just use that. So Kenneth Arnold's sighting is the one that supposedly gives us the UFO, right? Or the flying saucer, name. The more I've looked into that, the more it's become very, very clear to me that what he saw were very clearly Nazi aircraft, probably being flown by Nazis. And the whole UFO whitewash that I think the government put on it, and we see that through the 60s and into the 70s. And the 70s is where things get really maniacal with the government directly interfering with ufologists, but originally the UFO, it looks like the whole UFO phenomena was created, which is not to say there aren't legitimate UFOs, but this is an entirely different topic. But they were using the legitimate to cover up the Nazi stuff. So everyone's looking to saying, oh, you're hiding aliens and you have all these things going on. What they were really hiding was Operation Paperclip.
Right.
So oftentimes a lot of things, it may be that, again, they don't care why you're wrong or what wrong thing you glom onto, as long as you don't get the right thing. So a lot of these conspiracies seem to be created to push us in a different direction, because there is something they don't want us to see, but they don't care what direction we go, just so long as we're not going the right one. So there may, if Trump is like, nope, here's everything, and we get enough, we may see that the reason they've still remained classified is, again, these reasons we don't even have in our heads. There may be connections or whatever that we're like, oh, and so it's almost like, and this is how it goes into my second question. What if we don't even believe what we're given? Because we've hyped ourselves up to what, to who shot whom and who is behind this and who benefited, to the point that if it's like, boom, here's the full information, this is all the right information, would we even buy it anymore? Right? That was Yuri Bezmenov's whole point, is demoralization basically means you don't believe, you can be given real photographs, real documents, and you don't believe it. So it may be for naught anyway, because all the people who've spent their whole lives sort of looking into this, they may not even buy it. They may be like, I don't care. This can't be real because it's not the person that I have in my head.
Right.
And so my only question is, will we even buy it if it is released? Because if Kash Patel is accurate with his statement, which is that the reason that they're classified is for reasons nobody's talking about, might it be that those reasons are so far afield that we may reject them? If it's not something like George Bush Sr. hired a temporal clone of Alexander Graham Bell to travel through time to shoot him. It's like, if it isn't some sort of wild story, will we actually buy what happened? What if it really was that Oswald is the one who pulled the trigger? Right? Like, what if that is actually the reality here, but there's more to it, right? The thing is, it was the CIA, but it's because Oswald was a member of the CIA, or at least was an asset of the CIA. Like, would we even buy it? Like, and again, that's a whole conversation. I've spoken to, again, I know we've talked about this in the past. But the simple fact of the matter is, what if that's what we find out and everyone's like, no, we don't buy it? Then nothing's solved.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of weird. It's so like, I mean, the JFK one obviously is the biggest one. I mean, it's kind of like the holy grail of conspiracy theories. I still see like things on Instagram about it, and like stuff on the History Channel and like all that kind of stuff. There's still like new documentaries that are out all the time about like the new undiscovered like truth of whatever, blah blah blah, and then they have like whole new things going on. But lost in all of that, right? I mean, we all, know like RFK was assassinated and Martin Luther King and all that kind of stuff. Like, we all know that happened, but I never see anything like about it anywhere. It's not, there's no documentaries that are coming out every year, and there's no like newly discovered footage or whatever. And it's, to your point there, I mean, RFK and MLK, there was no specific like legislation that was like preventing it from being released to anybody directly. Like, there was no like freeze on those records coming out. And to your point, it was like, it could be they were just not looked at for other reasons, as far as like related, I don't know, spy groups or groups that they were looking at, or the U.S. was pushing into certain countries for whatever reason, and they just wanted to keep that part of it sealed. So, you know, all these records are just a part of that. Because, I mean, there's nothing on RFK and MLK that was like specifically saying that these couldn't be released for how many years, and
right,
you know, for
yeah,
this
they were
long,
just
anything like that. So,
but they were classified, and again, I think the thing about MLK is the most obvious because it is the FBI who killed him. Like we know that's what happened. It's been proven that that's what happened in a court of law. RFK, honestly, maybe, I think this is where things get wild. I wonder if RFK has been was covered up because it was clearly a political assassination, but that Sirhan was legitimately MK Ultra. Like that may be the point here. So again, we don't know. Like, obviously, I'm withholding all judgment until we see the documents. Once we see the documents, we can go through them, and we've had experts look at them and kind of go through them. Then we can reassess, right? But like I said at the beginning, my assumption is we're about to see Sharpie run out of materials for 2 years because the government's bought them all. But my fear is that when we do get them, if they're not just non-existent documents, I don't know if we'll buy them. I don't know if we'll believe them anymore. And that may be the bigger problem, is we may be so demoralized. The government may have done so much to destroy our faith in it, which is fine. I don't think we should have faith in anything outside of God. But the problem is then once we can no longer agree on what reality even is, and we've seen that. That's what thank you. Like, that's it. But it's like, my problem is, I think we've seen over the last 4 years what happens when people don't agree on reality. Because let's be honest, that's what the fight is right now. Everyone's like, okay, let me think for a quick second how to say this. I'm bringing back Siru papers, and yeah, we're going to talk about the weird stuff, but I'm also going to talk about subjects like politics being spiritual warfare, because it is, right? And Christians and our relationship with politics. I am perfectly okay with the right consisting of people we wouldn't have associated with in the past, right? Because let's be honest, what we've discovered over the last 4 years, really, I guess you could argue 8 with Trump. It started with his election in the first go around, where things started shifting. You're like, what is going on here? I am okay with the right embracing people who we would not traditionally be with, because let's be honest, what we've discovered is the Republican Party for the last 40 years has been nothing but a heat sink for those who would oppose the cathedral's overall globalist aim, right? And no, that's not code for anything. They are just globalists, and if you think that's only one race, then you're insane. It's everyone. Please understand, this is a globalist thing. That having been said, I'm okay with that, because what it will force Christians to do is actually separate a little bit from the Republican Party and realize, hold on, this can't be the same thing. We need to be something outside the system to affect the system, because that's what we're supposed to be. As Christians, we're supposed to be representatives of the cross, representatives of the kingdom of heaven to earth. And I'm happy to participate with the Republican Party, because that's where the fight is. The Democrats are ceded territory. That's fine. But I'm okay with working with these other people, because the fight right now between the left and the right are two different worldviews. One is the left is completely right now a Marxist view of the world, right? Which is that there is no truth, there is only power. There is only what you want it to be, and that you can remold reality into whatever you want it to be. We've seen it with Funny Mustache Man, because that's the name you can't say on air. We saw it with Stalin in the USSR. We saw it with Mao's China. We've seen it with the Kim family in North Korea. You know, you name it. They're just they believe they can create their own reality, and whatever happens it's like, no, we're going to make it. That's the lie. That's the lie that goes back to Nimrod. Is that humans get to play God. The argument on the right at this point is just, no, objective reality is a thing. Like that's really the argument now. It's objective reality is the thing, and that government should serve its people. This isn't even conservative views. This used to be, by and large, the assumption of Americans going back at least 200 years, 250 years. Not all of them. I've always argued that the Democrats have never, it's like, oh, the Democrats were bad back then, they changed. No, they've never changed at all. But there were assumptions that the assumption that the government should work for its people, and that there was an objective reality. There were lots of Democrats 60 years ago, 70 years ago, who agreed with those concepts. And right now, the reason there's such a split is because we're fighting against essentially, whether it's Bolshevik or Menshevik or what, that's how it looked in the past. This is the new version of this new Marxist ideology, but still comes back to the original ideology of Nimrod, which is that we can play God and decide what is right and wrong on our own. What does reality look like on our own, and think that actually matters. Right. So I'm okay with people that we wouldn't have associated with 10 years ago being on the right, because that's a useful conversation.
Right.
I mean, if you don't believe in objective reality, you can't have a conversation with someone who thinks that you can just declare a dog is a cat and now it's magically a cat. Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, going back to your point about how we would see all these things but not believe, obviously, to believe your eyes and all that kind of stuff. But it's I mean, I guess the only thing that kind of gives me hope somewhat that releasing all this stuff is on the right track. So you have people like, obviously all of us that aren't related, have nothing to do with anything, and we're not a part of that world, whatever. We all want to know what's going on. Like, we're like, yeah, release the files, and whoever was involved, like, let's go after them and blah blah blah, this and that. But when you see people that are related to like RFK Jr. Attacking him,
yeah,
you see like his freaking JFK's grandson, that guy, Jack Schlossberg, I think his name is.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Author, he's like a political writer, whatever he does, but he's related to JFK. Obviously, that's his grandson. But he's coming out and saying like it's not a good idea to release the papers and anything else because it like politicizes the legacy and all this stuff. And like, I get it, like, right, like he's dead, let them lie where they are, and it's not like rake the coals over them for like years and years to come.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just like, well, why? I mean,
yeah,
the Kennedys are like short of royalty in this country. And like, we all want to know what happened. Obviously the government in any way that happened murdered him, obviously. So like when I see stuff like that, like his own family just like, nah, we don't want them to come out and this and that like, where there's smoke, there's fire. Like that's what I believe in. Like, because they're saying those kind of things, I get it. Maybe on some level, they just want to let it go. And it's like, we've been a part of this for like 70 years now. And like, it's just over, blah, blah, blah. But like, he's like really railing against it. He doesn't want it to come out for whatever reason. So that, I mean, that throws up warning signs for me,
Yeah. And it should.
Exactly what's going on.
Yeah, it absolutely should throw up a warning sign, because it is a warning sign. Because let's be honest, the reason Kennedy's assassination matters isn't because the president of the United States can be killed by some random person. That's not really that big of a deal. I think one of the reasons a lot of people have clung to certain really sort of far out theories is because there's the desire for stability to believe that there's no way the most powerful person in the planet can be killed by some random person, right? Now, again, I think he was killed by the CIA, but there's the reason that people would go to the over the top, sort of super secret squirrel versions is because they want to believe that history isn't that fragile, that our reality there has to be more in play for our reality to break that way. But the simple fact of the matter is, the reason it matters is because we have one very specific question that is unanswered. Do we actually have a country that we run? Is this a country of the people, or by the people and for the people? Right? Or was there a coup with Kennedy when they killed him and then Nixon when they pushed him out? Has every president to some degree have to play a game? Like, they got some of the things done that they wanted around the edges, right? But that our nation essentially isn't a nation of us or by us or for us, but rather for this, again, the cathedral, right? The liberal economic order. Were we subjugated that day in November? Right? That's the question that remains unanswered. If it was just some random, nut job communist, let's just assume for a second that's what the document's saying. It's like, yep, nope, sorry, it's just him. I think it's like, okay, that's just how fragile reality is. But if it was the CIA, because he was an asset of some form, even if his service was only as to be the patsy, but he was involved in that way, which is why he shot Officer Tybalt. The simple fact of the matter is, then we don't have a country, because what sort of thing we were all told Nixon was the worst thing that had ever happened, and now we're starting to find out, oh, hold on, these pieces don't fit. He was ousted by the CIA. Okay, well, then that does sort of lead to some of these other questions about, the guy who shot Reagan, Hinckley, right? Apparently, the Hinckley, he's related to the Bushes to a point. And let's pretend for a moment that he genuinely believed. Does that mean he was maybe like Sirhan possibly was? Was he MK Ultra'd into attempting an assassination? It's like, I don't know. I don't know what these answers are. But the simple fact of the matter is, it's entirely possible that we've never had, that after that day, after Kennedy was killed, we've never actually had an actual president until maybe now. That every president has essentially been a stand-in to keep us happy. That, again, as I just said, I think the last 40 years has proven that at least for the last 40 years, the Republican Party was nothing more than a heat sink to keep us, who would oppose what they're doing, happy. So it looked like the illusion of control, or the illusion that we actually had a functioning society, when in fact we were being sold up the river the entire time.
Do you so? I mean, we keep tossing around things like mind control and all that kind of stuff, and I had a couple of conversations about that whole thing. I guess when the thing happened in New Orleans, and then at the Trump Tower in Vegas, and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I mean, I look at stuff like that, and I have no doubt that the programs existed. I mean, you have the 4th Psychological Operation Group out of Fort Bragg, which is, not a coincidence. Now, I don't know. I mean, I see things like online about like, oh, well, this guy in Vegas was there at the same time with the guy in New Orleans, and doesn't necessarily mean that they were like together and doing operations together at that time. I mean, it's like a giant hub for everybody that's going overseas. If you're in the Army and all that kind of stuff, you go through Fort Bragg. Like, it's just where everybody goes. But I mean, it's no coincidence that you have like special ops groups that are stationed there, and they have special operations training groups there, and this 4th Psychological Operation Group and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's like a whole nother side to that guy in Vegas that I don't really believe, because you had like people going on the Sean Ryan show, and they were like, oh, this guy was emailing me and all this crap. Like, okay, maybe. Okay, but whatever.
Maybe.
But
Yeah.
like, there's the people that he has on there, like, brings them on and like, oh, they're ex CIA people that run up, like Intel in Afghanistan and all this kind of stuff. And that guy, Sean Ryan, was in the CIA himself. And, like,
Yeah.
it's all too convenient, right? So, like, there's no such thing as ex-CIA. Like, everybody's CIA.
Mhm.
If you were in the CIA, you're still CIA. You'll be CIA until you die, whether you're active or not. Like, there's still some form of you that
Yeah.
still works for them, like, no matter what. There's no, like, you don't just, like, retire from them and then, like, you never talk to the people you used to work with ever again. It's like, it's going to happen on some form. Like, you just know the ins and outs of it. But
Yeah.
I mean, are we, despite that, there's that pocket there with that guy from Vegas.
Yeah.
Are we looking at more, whether people want to call it Manchurian candidates or just psychological operation, whatever, on these guys? I mean, it's like the classic story is like that guy in New Orleans was being radicalized and he was ISIS, and there was conveniently an ISIS flag on the floor next to his truck, and all this kind of stuff. I mean, are we looking at separate operations here, do you think? Are we looking at more mind control stuff? I mean, what was like the feel when it first happened? I mean, it was on the same day, really. So,
well, and again, I think there's reasons for that. My thing is this, right? On any one individual thing, it's like, okay, we got to let time come through on this, because there's always the first 24 hours, 48 hours, everything's wrong. Again, usually
mm-hmm. I would say yes. And everybody would say, just wait. The first 24, 48 hours is like, nobody knows what's going on and everybody puts pieces together. I think that was fine 30 years ago when social media didn't exist.
Well, social media is why we know the ISIS flag was there, because the cops actually covered it up on the scene. So let me make my point here on this one, because this is where I think maybe there is a connection at Fort Bragg. Isn't it Fort Liberty now? Didn't they change that?
I think they might have, but they should go back to Fort Bragg.
Yeah, exactly. But the simple fact of the matter is, maybe there's a connection there, maybe there isn't. I don't have any expertise in that particular area, so and I will let those who are better positioned look at it, but I'm right there with you. If you were CIA, you're always CIA. But the bigger problem for me is this. Yeah, social media is how we know that there was an ISIS flag there, because they covered it up. However, the simple fact of the matter is, this goes back to my point about, will we even believe it? This is what MK Ultra turned into. Every algorithm that makes you play your game one more time, or you want to buy one more loot box, or you want to swipe one more time, that's here. MK Ultra isn't, I mean, yes, there were programs that was like, can we create these sub personalities that can be given information and then hide, and then all the stuff you see in the movies. Absolutely part of it, but that was one part of it. There were at least 120 plus programs that we know nothing about. Every one of those psychiatrists and psychologists walked away with their information. All the stuff that was in the hands of CIA, they destroyed all that, but they all took that back to their colleges, and they were still running experiments. I'm fully convinced that Helter Skelter, not Marilyn Manson, Charles Manson. Yeah, I was like, no, that's the beautiful people. Yeah, Charlie Manson. There we go. I'm convinced Charles Manson was MK Ultra, straight up. There's another name I want to throw out there, because I think he was definitely involved. Again, he was a recipient of it, and I think it's very clear he suffered from it, but it's way too controversial to even say. But the simple fact of the matter is, those psychiatrists and psychologists learned what it takes to manipulate for psychological operations. And the simple fact of the matter is, I think that's been played on all of us. Again, that's what this thing turned it. That's what this is. This is MK Ultra manifest in a way, because In the same way you can't hypnotize. I was actually just listening to something about this. And again, I think that's an exaggeration, but I think it's a low resolution version of the concept. That's fine. You can't technically be hypnotized into doing something you don't want to do, right? Like, no one's going to hypnotize me into believing that I need to kill you because you're my friend and you make quesadillas, and I'm okay with that. Like, you can't just hypnotize me like, go kill. I'm not going to do that because it's against my character. But what you can hypnotize me into doing is believing that you're a threat to my family, and that your delicious quesadillas are actually coated in poison.
We're coming for you.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in that situation, now suddenly, well, the story's changed. You're now a threat. I would be willing to pull the trigger in that instance. Hypnotizing doesn't mean they strapped you into a chair and popped your eyes open and they're held open with tape and they're punishing you with episodes of The View until you psychologically break, right? And then they give you drugs and they program you. It's simply about making you believe something that isn't real. And if they can make you believe it, then they can control you. That's what Edward Bernays realized almost over a century ago. Is if you believe something's a reality, then you're going to live your life according to it. Like the entire concept, like the reason we have eggs and bacon for breakfast is considered a breakfast food, right? That was Edward Bernays. What did he do? He was hired by the pork industry to sell more pork, and he said, okay. So he hired out some studies to be done. Of course, they were all manipulated. He paid for them, and they just said, look, if you have more protein at breakfast, you're going to have a better day. You're going to have more energy. You're going to be more focused. Literally, he created the term breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And instead of making advertisements per se, he went to doctors. And I was like, well, here's all these studies. This is a balanced breakfast. Look at all this bacon and these eggs and your toast. And now you should be having bacon and eggs because everyone's already eating eggs anyway. It's like, look, boom, bacon. Look, add bacon to it. Now you're buying bacon all the time. And you've got the doctors pushing it. Sound familiar? They've realized this for a very long time. MK Ultra just proved if you can get people to believe something, you can get them to do something. That's what this is. And to a point, I think that's why, again, my one true conspiracy theory, meaning it's something I can't physically prove, right, is that I think a lot of conspiracy theories, again, there's the things that are called conspiracy theories, which is just us noticing things, right? But then there's the stuff that we just can't prove. Is I think that a lot of this is pushed and or encouraged by the government so that we would actually, so the people who actually say, hey, this math ain't mathin', are distracted.
Yep.
Because they don't care if you believe the earth is flat or that Tartaria was some super secret advanced culture that got wiped out 130 years ago and everyone's great grandfather is somehow involved in rewriting all of human history, right? They don't care. They don't care about that. As long as you're not asking the right question. As long as we're black pilled. I've got friends like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It'll never matter. Well, okay, but didn't we just learn that it does?
Right.
How many people have you heard say, it doesn't matter who we vote for, they're all the same?
Yeah.
No, they're not. We just got shown hard. We're not even a full 9 days into this presidency, and we've already shown that it's not. Because he took power at noon on Monday. We're not even a full 9 days into this at the time of this recording. And we can see, yeah, no, it does matter. We actually have a lot more power than we realize. What if the entire reason they want us distracted, they want us pursuing some of these other avenues is so that we're not actually, they want us tied up with the heat sink so that we don't make any real changes because they have no real power. I've said for the last 4 years, what it seems like the worst, like the most insane conspiracy theory around Biden was that he was actually president. Not that he was elected, but because he was, but rather that he was actually the one calling the shots. We all, and again, I don't think he really was, but what if he was to a point? Because the one thing I won't get over this, I think this is what broke me on this. He didn't step down from being president to allow Kamala to become the first female president. And it's clear she's pissed at him for not doing that. So what if the real conspiracy is to make us believe that they are more powerful than we realize? Like, there's a dichotomy here, and it's a real paradox. They are powerful and can do things to a point. But essentially what we have is the cathedral is not one organized group of hyper competent people controlling everything. It is simply a group of criminals, each one trying to get what they can get. And they understand that at least working together gets them money.
Right.
Which means they all have to make us believe that they're more powerful than they are. And all it takes is for us to actually stand up and go, no. As long as we have learned helplessness, we're victims. The second we realize, oh, wait, we can actually just stand up and say no and tell them to screw off, that's when they lose their power. And they don't have any real power. It's all an illusion. What if that's the real conspiracy? Is that they're trying to make us believe that we are helpless? That's what they've been trying to push on us. They've been trying to keep us distracted and depressed so that we never realize we can literally change the world.
Right.
And why would we ever assume otherwise? We had to be reminded that we are God's imagers on earth, that we have an obligation and a duty to fight against evil. We thought, well, if we voted R, let's say you're a Democrat, you thought you voted Democrat, it was all fine. But you gave up your obligation to the world because you're like, well, I can't do anything. I'm just a guy who lives in Waxahachie. I'm just a guy who lives in Timbuktu. I'm just some nobody. I don't matter. But we do. We always have. And what they've wanted is to make certain anyone who'd have the enough gumption to kind of go, maybe I can change something here. They wanted you out. They wanted to keep you distracted because because the same guy who, and by the way, he's completely wrong about this, but who would say, well, hold on, you can't close a glove in a vacuum, right? He's wrong about the whole, well, you can't take a picture on the moon because you have to have, it's because they have joints. They're individually pressurized. But the point is, a welding glove doesn't have joints. That's why that doesn't work. But that's a whole different story. But the same guy who's going to notice that and think about that would also be a terror at the city council when he's looking at where the bills are going, or where the money's going. Right? If the guy who's going over every frame of the moon landing was weaponized to go at his city council and go over every line item in their yearly funds, can you imagine what they would find? Could you imagine if we actually weaponized autism, the autism of the conspiracy groups into actual documents in every city? And we saw the graft and we saw the corruption and we actually got those people locked up and kicked out. Could you imagine what would happen in by the year 2028 rolls around? Right. Where would we be? What kind of country would we be? Everyone wants to audit the Fed. Please do. I want the federal government audited because I guarantee you they've stolen way more money than we realize. But the real power is in your city, your neighborhoods, your mayors, your city councils, your governors, your state congressmen. If we just bring the power back to the states and we actually pay attention to what they're doing, I guarantee you Washington falls much faster than we realize.
Didn't they say that they misplaced another $1 trillion or something like that recently?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the word misplaced. Like they were just like, oh, I lost my debit card, and then it's just like gone.
Yeah.
Like somebody, what do you mean misplaced? I mean, that's
Did you check the couch cushions
wild.
there, Schumer? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
People getting hemmed up for not paying their taxes was like maybe they owed like a couple grand or something like that, and they just couldn't afford to pay it, and like these people are going to jail and putting liens on their accounts and all kinds of crap, and then like these
Mm-hmm.
people are just like, oh, we lost it. And it's just like,
Yeah,
what?
we've
What do you
misplaced $1
mean?
trillion. Yeah. Well,
I mean, I
and
don't
that's
necessarily think that it was misplaced and lost. Obviously, it's gone to somebody. It's like, somebody has a piece of it, and some people in the government have a chunk here and there, and this and that for this, and it's just how. I mean, I don't remember these people in the government working my shift with me this morning. So
Mhm.
I didn't see them. I didn't see them there. So
You want me to get real dark on you real fast?
yeah.
All right. Why do you BlackRock, Vanguard, the K Street, all of these large, massive hedge funds, right? Where do you think that money actually comes from? They have $13 trillion of assets. It's like, well, it's hedge funds and mutual funds. Oh, I'm sure some of it is, but not all of it.
Yep.
I mean, that's like I said. Here's okay, real dark, and I mean real dark.
Well, they burned down cities on purpose for it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Now they're sticking their hooks into Mexico and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's where it comes from. And they create all these
Oh,
like
Ukraine.
fires and whatever that's going
Mhm.
on. Yeah. In Ukraine. And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure there's already talks in the works for Gaza and, stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I have no doubt.
But here's where it gets real dark. And I'm going to use an example that I've recently learned. And it made me happy to a little bit to learn that modern art was because it actually justified a comment that or thought I've had because again, I'm an artist, always have been. I hate modern art, always have. And I've long tried to figure out how modern art was somehow the government's fault, like its popularity. And it turns out I was right. The
Yeah.
CIA was behind all of it. And I won't promote anybody else's show, but there's plenty of people who've looked at that. But the simple fact of the matter is that here's how it worked. The CIA would take funds and they would give it to this group over here, right? And everyone kind of knew this group was shady. Well, this group would then talk to these other people, and they would fund that group, who would then fund this group. So the money's been laundered, and now we have, independent art collectors and wealthy people who may be getting breaks, and then you have these magazines that are funded 2 or 3 degrees away from the original source, which is the CIA. Now we have, here it looks like it's all legit, right? But the CIA is funding all of it. It's not just the CIA, it's a lot of things. So essentially, most major groups that we've seen are probably all AstroTurf on the conservative and on the left. And that's where a lot of this money is actually going, is it's going out to these NGOs that funnel, they launder the money, and some of it goes back to politicians, of course. But a lot of this money is being spent to go and then laundered to change our views on things, or to elicit changes and benefits. And really what it is we're being paid to psyop ourselves into doing what they want us to do, instead of actually, making changes. I guarantee you the money that we're spending is going to, if we could actually wave a magic wand and we saw where the money was going, there would be pitchforks and torches immediately. People on the left, people on the right, everyone would go. It would look like the ending of every Frankenstein movie times 1 billion.
Yeah.
Look at all the money that's gone into inner cities, right? We have all this money that's gone to the inner cities. Where did it actually go? Tell me. Because you know where it didn't go? The inner cities.
Yeah.
If the money actually went where they claim to have, they claim to where it's supposed to have gone, every inner city should be clean. Every school would look like something out of a Marvel comic book. We've spent trillions of dollars. Nothing's changed. In fact, everything's gotten worse. So where's the money actually going? I think it's way worse than we realize. And that's what everyone's freaked out about.
Well, I think I have no doubt in certain projects and stuff, but I think it's pretty simple. I mean, it's the reason why I don't give to like the American Red Cross and like the cancer societies and all these stuff, because they always, every year it's the same thing. Like, oh, donate money for cancer research. It's been cancer research for like the last 40 years. And you dig into like the money and where it goes, it's like, I think only like 5% of the money that's donated actually goes to the research. The rest is going to like executives and whoever's running that program, salaries and bonuses, and they're taking trips. And it's like that money's not going to where it should be going. And that's the grift. I mean, that's the whole thing with the homelessness thing. Like, there would be no homelessness business if there was no homeless people. I mean, the people that run all these like groups and funds to help homeless people get off the streets and get clean, like, they're getting paid like $200,000 a year just to run that. And there's all kinds of executives that run it on the board and all that kind of stuff. Like, if they actually cure homelessness, like, they're out of a job. Like, where are they going to work after that? So it doesn't pay to clean it up. But I think it's funny that you mentioned like the modern art stuff, because I was actually looking into this for a future show and how the CIA was using like the modern art thing to try and propagandize in the Cold War and make it seem like the US is like free and this and that and blah, blah, blah to the citizens. But on the other side of that coin, I was looking more into like the propaganda, like mental warfare on the American citizens on behalf of the CIA, where we went from creating like amazing architecture back in the days, like these giant cathedrals and all these buildings were like, sculpted, and they're like, we're amazing, all this stuff, to like just bland beige buildings. Like, if you go to the DMV, like it's on purpose. It's like meant to like ruin your spirit.
It's
that's
the brutalist architecture. Yeah.
And I was thinking about that too, like a while back. I was just like, man, it makes so much sense. Cause I mean, I've been to a few countries like overseas, like that still have amazing architecture, and like never been to Russia, but like I can only imagine it's still how it used to be back in the day, all the buildings and all that kind of stuff. I've been to like Cuba, and it still has the old architecture. The buildings are not like modern buildings. I mean, not too much. But there's still areas around the world where it's like old architecture. I was just in DC about 2 months ago. I mean, I saw the cathedral that they have out there. It's like amazing. And I've never seen anything like that, like in person. But like the rest of the city is just like modern buildings, just squared beige buildings, maybe some brick buildings here and there. And it's just like, it's not on purpose. It's meant to like drive you. It's meant to make you like submissive and like just feel shitty when you look at it. Like, it's, I mean, besides the fact that I was just in DC and there's just all kinds of shitbaggery there. So I felt that also, but
the oppressive, the oppressive evil that's there. So that's a really great point. Art Deco is really the last sort of push of art. Art should, so there's a lot of different views on art. One of the reasons I hate modern art is that it has no point. Art should be something that drives and inspires humanity. There's a speech. Steve Ditko, co-creator of Spider-Man, and also like a bunch of other characters, including Doctor Strange and others. He, like, there's no photograph of him after like 1960 something. He was a full-blown Randian, right? And like, he was owed a lot of money for Spider-Man, because Sony's like, okay, well, you co-created, so we're going to give you. He goes, nope, I didn't work for it. I don't deserve it. Now, it's a little narrow view for work, but whatever, you know. But he one of the very few times that he actually did something publicly. His whole point was I put my beliefs in my comics. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, I don't care. But he gave this speech on the power of art, and I can't ever get it out of my head, because one of the things he points, he goes, art is supposed to point a man to what he to as he should be or as he could be. Art is meant to inspire. And his whole point was he was comparing how these 90s heroes they were full of physical power, but they were weak morally. They were weak intellectually. He's like, no, we're supposed to have heroes that call us to be something better. Art Deco was beautiful. And the thing is, when you realize that beauty is real, then you start to look up. Right?
Yeah.
You start to be inspired to do big things and great things. There's a point where maybe post World War II, there was a lot of stuff that needed to get built quickly. And so going with something that's easily constructed, easily put up, there's an argument to be made that that's where a lot of things were. Fair. However, in that drive, I think an opportunity was taken by those who want to keep us submissive. Again, back to my point. It's clear that the Republican Party of the last 40 years, if not 50 or 60, it was simply a heat sink. That at some point someone realized, if we stay away from grandiose artwork, if we stay away from art that would inspire you to do bigger and better things that are classically American, but if rather it's like, no, you stay in your lane, you sit in the cubicle, you push the paperwork, right? If there's nothing to inspire, just do your damn job, and that's all you ever are. And you got to let the experts do the thing. Again, I don't have a problem against experts, but they're not priests. They're not gods. They're men who, and by the way, if all your experts agree, you don't have experts, you got propaganda. You have a dogma. You do not have an expert. But to your point, the brutalist architecture was to make us submissive, was to beat down the spirit so that we stay in our lane, so that they can run the world and we don't get out of place.
Yeah. I mean, obviously everybody's been to the DMV at some point. I mean, just being in those buildings,
yes,
it's just like some
hell
random shopping center, and it's just like tucked away in the corner somewhere, and you walk in, it's just what it is. It's just like, man, just that is what they want everywhere. I mean, they pretty much have done it. I mean, there's nowhere anywhere that I've been. Maybe you go downtown Dallas, you know, the church that's down there, that's nice, you know, whatever, the one that burned down.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I went to the cathedral in DC a couple months ago, and I was down there, and like, that's fantastic. I mean, it's like the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like, I tried to go to cathedrals in Europe and stuff like that. I just never made it out there. And then I remember taking an Uber from the airport going to my hotel in Bethesda, and like on the way there, it's like on the way we passed right in front of it, and I just looked up and I was just like, holy shit. I was like amazed. And then I got to the hotel, I changed and everything, and I went straight back. I had to go look at it, and it was like the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. And then, like, you know, like I said, just the rest of the city is just like
trash.
It's just
it's by
buildings and, it's meant to like make you feel like shit, and it works. I mean, there's some areas in Bethesda I was in, like, you could tell they're old homes and they're nice, you know, just classical like DC homes that are real nice and have a little bit of architecture to them here and there. But I mean, for the most part, it's just like the newer stuff. There's just giant apartment complexes everywhere, and it's just not the same. It just makes you feel different on purpose, and you know, that's the plan. So
in a way, this all ties together, right? And it's like, well, you started off talking about, you know, the files coming out. Now we're talking about architecture, and it's all the same question.
Right.
Who do they work for? Do they work for us, or do we work for them? If they worked for us, then they would genuinely do things that were in our interest. It wouldn't be corrupt. I mean, corruption is going to exist to a degree, but it can't be everyone. If everyone genuinely was like, no, let's work for we would do bigger, better things. We would build buildings. We would want to inspire to greatness. But if we work for them, then they're going to kill they're going to kill our politicians. They're going to kill our heroes. And again, there's some question about some of MLK's behavior. That's a whole different kettle of fish. The point is, the people who would actually fight for the people, they go away. They find a way to destroy them. They find a way to oppress your spirit so that you stay down, because their power is ultimately an illusion. Yeah, you can kill a president. You can kill some guy who's out there protesting. You can kill that newspaper man who reported on your drug smuggling. But you can't kill all of us. More importantly, you can't kill an idea with a bullet. All that is required for evil to prosper is for good men to do nothing. We have learned we're not even done with day 9 yet, that it's true. Yeah. That you matter. Every person on the other end of this, I don't care. You're sitting there dunking your Oreos into whiskey. You still matter. Paul's like, "What? I don't see what the problem is with that."
Oreos, at least. That's a good idea. Shit. Yeah. Oreos. Dang.
That's what I'm saying. That's the simple fact of it. It doesn't matter how small you think you are. You aren't. You were made in the image of the one true, omnipotent, all-powerful God, and you're meant to be his imager on this planet. It means you are powerful whether you like it or not. Your job is to get your butt out there and make it a better place. And if you're like, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in Jesus, then you need to get your head right, do that, then get out there and get out in the world and make the world a better place, because you can, because you do matter. And that's the whole point. That's the connection.
Yeah.
A culture that believes in itself makes good art, makes great art. A culture that will move on and prosper, where people are happy, make great art. But a culture that's been destroyed makes ugly, horrific propaganda.
Yep. Yeah, that's why I push for people to try and visit other countries as much as they can. A lot of people are like, oh, you've only ever been in America your whole life, and that's true for a lot of people, and like they don't understand, like there's a whole world out there that's just amazing. And obviously I would never leave the US and like live anywhere else. I would never leave Texas and live anywhere else, but I've been to other countries. I lived in other countries for a bit here and there, and it's just like a whole nother, it's like I don't know, feeling and like mentally freeing in a way. I mean, you've lived, like I'm from a small town, so like I'm from El Paso, and I've only ever lived in El Paso in like my first 20 years of my life, whatever, and I knew nothing else, like nothing at all about anything. I only ever seen places on TV or on the internet, whatever. And then all of a sudden, like I was out there, different countries, visiting different ports, meeting different people all over the world, and like, bam, like you're just open to all kinds of ideas and things. And I just don't understand how people don't want to like experience that kind of stuff. And like, it doesn't mean you have to live out there and like be out there your whole life. You just experience things and then come back home, and then you're just open to more things. But that's one of the things I've been looking at lately, is just that whole modern architecture thing, and how it's meant and created to like just bring us down and make us not want to strive for other things, and not want to like strive for more information and just get out of our own head and like our own whatever bubble that we're in. It's not on purpose for a lot of people. You see all these buildings out there. It's not like we could build stuff if we wanted to. It's just easier, and it's, I guess, more, they save more money by just not I mean, it's
Yeah.
like
It's
thousands of freaking shopping centers that look exactly the same all over the place.
yeah.
So
It's cheaper, and it's cheaper and requires less skill. And it goes faster. That's the other thing, is it absolutely goes faster. I will say this: I saw a meme, and I think it's hilarious, that if we were to show a pharaoh, one of the that giant glass Bass Pro Shop, the pyramid, you were like, oh, the pyramids are so impressive. They would, the pharaohs would be floored by it because it's glass, right? And that we created it so quickly, they would hyperventilate at the awe of it. So a lot of things are perspective, but this is also why history matters, and this is why we have to understand history as well, because once you get that larger view of history, you learn things about people, about how people work.
yeah,
And you become a lot less, I think you become a lot less trusting of government, and a lot more optimistic about the power of people. And you also learn not to trust anybody. But to your point, I'm right there with you. Again, my point is, you can tell a culture by its art. 100%. That's what it is. We don't make good art anymore, because you have to believe in your culture. You have to have optimism. This is why the Marvel movies suck right now, because those first few stories, and this is legit. All of those stories were based on stuff pre-80s. All of those stories more or less came from before the 80s, maybe to the mid 80s. The whole Thanos snap, that literally was from the Infinity Gauntlet. That wasn't even in the 90s yet, maybe early 90s. All of the newer stuff, when you're like, man, Marvel Phase 4 sucks, and all the other phases, the reason they suck is because it's the new stuff. It's the stuff that we're doing now. Now, you could argue Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't technically fit into that, but I would suggest what James Gunn did with that series was, in a way, he kind of made a parody, which is why if you're like, what about Deadpool and Wolverine? Deadpool and Wolverine's a parody of a superhero flick. I hate to tell you this, but it's not a comedy, it's a parody. Guardians of the Galaxy is an exception. But the vast majority of the story of all the movies, everyone's like, man, that was a great film that Marvel made. They were all predicated on stuff from the 80s or before. Every single aspect of them, every character. And that matters, because there was still that, I think it was Dennis Prager who called it cut flower philosophy. That a flower, as long as it's in the ground, it's nutrient, it's vibrant, and you can clip it, and you can put it in water and bring it inside, and it will look beautiful for a while. Then it dies, and it slowly dies, and then it becomes dead real fast. That's where we are. Yeah, the 80s, you know what? We still had some stuff going on. That's why the Transformers, G.I. Joe were awesome. We were still in the height of the Cold War. There was still there were still enough people holding on to some things, but the rug had been pulled out from underneath it, which is why it just kept going downhill and downhill and downhill. Now we're where we are, but people are waking up. People are fighting back. And we're fighting back at the ballot box, and we're fighting back in culture. We're right. Hold on. I put this book down here because I got something out of it earlier. I haven't finished it. Truth, I haven't even really started it, but I've seen some stuff from Megan Basham. I'm in no way associated with Ms. Basham at all. Shepherds for Sale. If you haven't seen her talk about this on some of these other shows, go buy this book. Because again, this goes back to my whole point. If you're wondering why the church has gotten where it is, this is it. Again, why the Republican Party? Why was it a heat sink for 40 years? The church is supposed to be the conscience of our nation. We got sold out. And so if you think politics is bad, there's a reason why the churches look the way they do. But we're fighting back with home churches, and there are revivals in churches. That's why you're seeing so many churches split. Everyone's like, oh, this is terrible. I think it's great. There are people at the beginning of COVID that I thought were on our side, people I've known my whole life. I'm like, okay, these are good people. And then you find out, oh, hold up. No, you weren't. You weren't really on our side.
Right.
And it became obvious. That's why I'm okay with all of this. Be like, oh, isn't it? Don't we? It's so terrible. These things are happening. No, we're seeing who's who. And the reason that's important is it allows you to pull the weeds. And once those weeds are pulled, you can actually flourish. Your crops can grow. We have been given a very rare opportunity, Senor Papi.
Yes, sir.
We've been given the opportunity to fight back. And this is something most people will never see have never seen throughout history. This isn't people like, oh, are we leading to another civil war? No, we're leading to another revolution. I really hope it's peaceful. The left has never been peaceful, but I think we can do a lot of this peacefully. Because all we have to do is make our arguments, which we haven't been making, because we thought, I'm not the one to make the argument. I'll let the experts make the arguments. I'll let the people who sold us out make the arguments. No, you make the argument. You on the other side of this camera, y'all are watching this. You are powerful. You are important. You make the argument to your friends, to your family, to your public. Again, you go to your city council meetings. You meet your mayor and your city councilman. You meet your state representatives. Talk to them. Because if enough of you say what you want and you make it happen, then it'll happen. You're powerful. Your church is going the wrong way, making bad decisions. You got sold out. Okay. Maybe you can make some changes. If you can't make some changes there, get out and find a church that's doing the right thing and become a part of that church and work to bring people to that church where there is the Spirit of God there. We don't have to lose. Losing is a choice. Now, don't get me wrong. I think probably in a much sooner time than people would like to realize, there's going to be a time when the saints are worn out, as is prophesied. But you know what? What better be happening when he shows up? You doing your job. Because if you lay down when there's no opposition, of what good are you? He's going to it's like, wait a minute. This could have been at least in a better state before I got here. But you laid down when there was no reason to.
Yeah.
Just saying. We got power.
Yeah.
It's time to use it.
For sure. It's going to be a wild ride here in the next, we're just in, like you said, a little over a week, and all kinds of things are going crazy, and I can only imagine where we end up in the next 4 years or so, but it should hopefully be a lot better than where we were previously. So, it's only up from there. So,
can I say this? Better may be in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Better may not mean more comfortable. Better may not even necessarily mean that we have all of the glitz and the glamour and all the things we're sort of used to, but better may be that we're less corrupt. Better may be that we're building a society that's worth our children living in again. Yeah. And that would be worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess we wrap up here a little bit. So bringing back serial papers, or because I know before last year, you kind of went incognito there for a bit, and then you came back a little. Is it? I guess, are we kind of waning? Are you waning yourself off the internet for a while? What's going to happen?
Yeah. So I just kind of realized this wasn't necessary. I had learned what I needed to learn. God's like, hey, it's time to step away. And again, go do real world things. And I realized it's time to sort of, there was a point where it's like I took 3 months off entirely. It was like I wasn't anywhere near it. I do some guest spots, here and there. It's like, nope, I'm done. I'm done for 3 months. I can't do anything and just live my life and get back into doing art and comics and stuff, and did all that. And now I think it's, things kind of came back ahead, and it's like, what am I doing here? Where am I going with this? What should I be doing? And God's like, okay, now you've seen enough. It's time to move on. So I'm bringing Serial Papers back. I'm hoping to get the website back up and running this weekend, server issues and all that. But it'll probably just be more like, hey, look here. So the show is coming back on Rumble and YouTube, and there'll be probably 2 episodes a month, short 10, 15-minute videos. They won't be edited or anything. I don't have the time or the money to do that. But what I want to do is take all of this stuff, paranormal, creationism, the cryptozoology, UFO, all that kind of stuff, and even, answering questions like, are politics spiritual warfare? I want to answer those questions. I want to give you, the good people, everything you need to know, and of course resources to go and learn and educate yourself on these things yourself. But also my main thing is how to put things into their appropriate place. Like, I've been talking about the Nephilim for 20 plus years, but I also think that we've gone overboard with the Nephilim, right? Where everyone wants to make everything about the Nephilim. It's like, no, they're an important key to understanding the Old Testament and even parts of the New Testament. It really is. But it's not the beginning and the end. Like we have, where it's like, it's just becomes the new toy and everyone focuses on that and they try to make everything about it. No, put it where it needs to go, right? Let it sit in your theology where it needs to be. So you can recognize the things you need to recognize, but then move on. Again, I focus on the beginning. I've said this for years. I focus on the beginning of the book and the end of the book. I've written on eschatology. I work in creationism, because the middle of the book is what matters. We need to put things where they belong. For too long, the American church has rejected a lot of this stuff. Serial Papers wants to put it back in where it needs to be, but we don't lose ourselves in it, right? I've seen too many Christians, sort of realize, okay, there's stuff in we need to be paying attention to the paranormal, but then they get lost in the paranormal. And it's like they kind of start becoming, they start bringing in stuff and ideas like, whoa, that's not Christian, right? It's like you're embracing occult behaviors and occult thoughts. And it's like, well, okay, there's a happy medium here where we can put it where it needs to be and understand the world that we live in properly, but we don't get seduced by it and we don't ignore it. That's what Serial Papers is going to do. And I will write, there'll be a magazine at least once a year with articles on eschatology and all those things as well. But I'm going back to working on a lot of comics, actually. So I'll be doing a lot of that.
Yeah. Pretty sweet. As long as you don't disappear completely, we'll be all right.
Yeah, I won't disappear completely, but I'm going to make certain that I'm putting time where I need to put in time. And there will be some other projects that'll be on the down low that I'm hoping will be a lot more impactful in the real world. And because here's the thing, man. Again, back to my point about these things being where MK Ultra went to, right? If all you ever do is complain about it is complain on this. I'm not saying that you talking about things on Facebook or X or whatever isn't important. It is. But if it only stays here, then you've lost and they've won. This should be a tool for getting out the information completely. But if it doesn't translate into the real world, then you've done nothing. And they've won again. It's just another heat sink. I don't want my stuff to be just another heat sink. I need to be out in the real world doing stuff. So like I said, there's going to be some stuff that's on the down low, but out there in the real world. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, we'll definitely be looking forward to all that kind of stuff going on. It's going to see, like I mentioned, things are getting pretty crazy this year. So it's only going to get crazier. I think we're going to see what's going on with all these, confirmations and stuff. And we'll see what happens when people get into office and changes that are being made and stuff. So it's going to be a wild ride, I guess, from where we were previously.
Oh, it's going to be fun. It's going to be real fun.
It's going to be, it's going to be pretty crazy. I mean, obviously, like the big thing now is we're keeping our eyes like on the border and stuff, and it's been kind of crazy. You can only imagine, like everybody's pretty much divided on people getting, rounded up and sent back to whatever country they came from and stuff like that. So it's kind of a weird perspective being. I mean, I'm from El Paso, so I was like born and raised on the border. So I know like a crap ton of people that like when you grew up, that's just what it was. Like people just crossed over and like everybody knew like, oh, like they're illegal, but don't say that. It's just one of those things like you just know, like, oh, those people are illegal, you can say anything, whatever. So it's like it's kind of a weird, I would say, place to be because I'm not, people expect me to like be against what's happening and in a weird kind of way. I'm not. Like it's I mean, you're breaking the law. I mean, when I was married and like my son's mom, we went through the process of like bringing her here legally and paid thousands of dollars and waited online and went the whole green card way and then became a citizen, all that kind of stuff, right? So like I know the process, and then to think that there's just people that just walk in, without anything at all, and they're just like here for free and giving money. And I mean, nobody gave us credit cards with thousands of dollars on them. I didn't have rent paid. There's no like $800 or whatever it is, like I think I saw like $2,000 food stamps like every month. Like there was none of that stuff. Like, it's like, so it's like, what are we doing here? Like let's not go down this path. And like I get it. Like there's the kids that are involved and like all this stuff, but it's like blame your own parents for bringing you here. As a matter of fact, I don't blame these people for coming. I blame their government for making it so shitty in their own countries that they feel like they have to come and do all this stuff. Like nobody cares about that aspect of it. Like we should be looking at country of origin and like, why aren't you helping your people out? Like, why do they feel like they have to cross entire oceans to get here and like walk in illegally? And like what are you guys doing? But I don't know. It's weird. I mean, you can imagine during the elections, based on, because I'm from Hispanic family and Mexican households and stuff, like people in my family and people that I grew up with already hated me because I voted Trump. Now with this whole deportation stuff, it's even worse. You can just imagine. So,
well, if it makes you feel any better, two polls, and again, statistics are worth what they are. But there are two different polls, or a bunch of different polls have sort of come up with that almost 90% of everyone agrees that criminal, again, it's sort of redundant, but criminal illegal aliens should be deported. So people who've gone over and above just being here illegally should be deported. That's almost 90%. You can't get almost 90% of people to agree on anything. And then 67% are like, everybody who's illegal should go. So there's a lot broader there's a broader consensus on this than the media wants us to think there is. But the simple fact of the matter, what it comes down to is this. I don't know anyone who isn't okay with like the old Bracero program, where if you want to come here and work for 6 months and then go make money and then go home, okay, cool, no problem. The issue is they're always going to show you some crying child or some mother who's weeping, and it's like, see, you need to let us do this because of this one person. Okay, where's the 300,000 children that you sold into sex slavery? Are you going to show us those pictures? Oh no, you're not. Are you going to show us the pictures of Tren de Agua, whatever their name is, or MS-13, or any of the other gangs that are illegally smuggling children over here? They're raping them on the way in, and then when they get here, they have wars in our streets. They kill our people. And by the way, you know who they terrorize even more than the native-born people? Are the immigrants who are here legally, because they move into the same neighborhoods and they terrorize them.
Yeah.
You're going to show me those pictures? No, you're not. You're going to show me the one because that's the one that makes you money. Again, do you think that if the cathedral thought that those people would side with us, that they'd be anywhere near here? Nope. That wall would have been erected 20 years ago and they'd be belt-fed 50 cals.
It's the reason why they don't help import people from like Cuba and all that stuff, because they know
Mhm.
like everybody that comes from Cuba goes to Florida and they all vote Republican for a reason. Like, you know, they
Uh-huh.
know exactly what's
Oh,
going on. It's wild.
never forget that the Democrats are happy to send in people with guns to take a child to send them back to Cuba.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The only time in recorded history that a Democrat has ever cared about fathers' rights was to bust into a home, steal a child, and kick his ass back to Cuba. That's the only time the Democrats ever cared about fathers' rights. And it's the only time they've ever that they've ever shown what they really believe, which is they don't give a damn about you or us. They don't even give a damn about the kid. Please understand. If these illegal immigrants were voting Republican, or they were actually wanting to come here and become Americans, enculturate, build a better society, then they would absolutely, that wall would have been built decades ago. They know what they are. And by the way, what's the argument? It's the same argument we had over, over slavery. It's, well, who's going to pick the cotton? He's like, well, hey, why don't we get rid of slavery? But then who's going to pick the cotton? The white people? The Democrats have never changed their tune. It's, oh, we need to it's like, well, why don't we have a better legal immigration system that makes certain we don't have illegals here, because they run down the jobs, and there's a lot of stuff that comes with it. So why don't we just do it so that there's a big, nice door, as Trump even said. Let's have a nice big door where people can come in legally. Let's simplify this process. Let's make it easier to come here legally, harder to come here illegally. The first words out of their mouths, but who's going to mow my lawn?
The
same people
who's going to work at the restaurants, who's going to cut grass.
Yeah. The same people who scream about livable wages. Like, well, great. Well, once we get rid of the illegal immigrants, then you know what? Everyone's going to, then the wages will actually rise, because illegal immigrants suppress the wages. They're going to have to pay more. But then my coffee will cost more. Oh, thank you for telling us what you really believe, which is you don't give a damn. You're okay with exploiting these people because you're actually pieces of crap. You want to pretend that you care about these people. You don't care that these kids are getting raped dozens of times crossing over and then being sold into slavery. You don't care that some of these kids are going to work on illegal grow farms under inhumane circumstances. You don't care about any of that. Not one thing. You don't care that they're being paid below minimum wage to work someplace. You don't give a damn about any of it. But you want to look like you care, and you want to pay your illegal nanny less. That's all this is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same thing I tell everybody all the time, because I get a lot of I mean, I don't really care. It's just when I see stuff on like online or whatever, and I make a comment, and it's just like, well, he's coming for you too. And I was like, dude, I was born here. Like, my parents were here. Like, my grandparents came here before being illegal was even a thing. And then when they made I forget what act that was in the naturalization. I don't remember what it was back in the 50s or something like that, the 60s. Yeah. But when that whole thing started, where like you had to have papers to come in, all that stuff, my grandparents went back to Mexico for like 2-3 years while they got all the paperwork done, waited like everybody else, got it, and then they came back. But the point was that they went back on their own, and did it the right way. So I'm just like, I've been here, I was born here. Like, but it's a weird thing, but it's the same thing I tell everybody whenever I get shit. Cesar Chavez hated illegal immigration.
Yes.
He hated illegals because it drives down the wages so bad that the people that came here they came from Mexico as well, but did it the right way. They waited for years. They can't get a high paying job because these other people just come in and just like, we'll take whatever we can get as long as we're here. Like, blah, blah, blah,
So, nope, exactly. Yeah. I love when people find out the truth about Cesar Chavez.
He hated him too. It was wild.
Yeah, he did. He did. Again, this goes back to my whole point of history. So you got to learn history. If you knew history, you'd want Che Guevara to be, his body to be exhumed and burned again.
Yeah.
Like, if you knew history, you'd be like, oh wait, this isn't as cut and dry as I thought it was.
Yeah.
None of it is. If you read history, you'd be like, oh, we are the most privileged people to ever exist. Everyone here, and that means we have to defend it and fight for it and build it, because if we don't, then it's going to go away pretty fast too. So I mean, that's all of it. We are at an inflection point, and we can actually choose to allow this country to continue and actually grow better and benefit more people and inspire people again. In all these countries, like, oh, but it's so terrible where they are. Okay, why don't we help them make it better? They can't make it better if they're here. Yeah. I'm okay with helping everybody. I want to help everybody, as long as it's actually helping them. Problem is, most of the time we help, we're just giving money to criminals.
Pretty much everybody in government.
Yeah. Again, but I repeat myself.
Yeah. Criminals indeed. Well, we'll keep our eyes peeled. It's going to be a crazy ride, so we'll see where we end up. But so yeah, everybody, serialpapers.com is coming hopefully this weekend. Hopefully everything gets back up and running.
Yeah, and the new episodes, starting February 25th or 26th. I forget. I have it written down somewhere.
Yeah, we'll get there. Everybody will tune in, obviously, so it'll be good. Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you jumping on. It's been a while, so just had to catch up and see what was going on, and hopefully nothing too crazy happens here in the near future that we have to jump on for something else. But
yeah, if anything crazy happens, I'm always happy to come back. I love your show. Love you. In an HR appropriate way, sir. HR appropriate way.
Hey, keep your hands to yourself. Take your hands off my quesadillas. No. Yeah. We'll get, so everybody, I finally got all my social media back up and running. So it was like a weird thing that happened the other day that I'm assuming somebody reported me for some reason.
Yeah.
Then my main account that I usually use for myself was like gone. I had my Facebook that was attached to it. Obviously now, like if you use Facebook and Instagram, you have to log into like that Meta portal.
Yeah.
So it like keeps track of every account you have. So like my personal Instagram was gone, and then it's connected to my Facebook. So my Facebook was wiped completely. And I was just like, what the hell? And then I have two show accounts that I just post like show updates, and then another one where I just talk shit as part of the show. And then those two were gone. And then I just have like another one that's like not connected to anything. It's just like a different email completely. And even that one was gone, like out of nowhere. I was just like, what the hell? So I had to appeal each one and like send in screenshots to prove it was me, and like emails and phone numbers and all that stuff. And I was just like, what the hell's going on? And then like 2 days later, all of a sudden I woke up the next morning, and out of habit, when I wake up in the morning, I just open up Facebook, and I was like in the bathroom, and I opened up Facebook, and my account was back, and I was like, oh shit. And I went to Instagram, and all my accounts were back, all four of them. Like, I was like, what the? It was the wildest thing ever. Anything we lost was the show page on Facebook, but it wasn't really active on there all that much. So
yeah, well, Facebook's going away eventually anyway. So
it's weird. It's the weirdest thing. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where it came from. I saw alerts from Instagram about like they took down certain posts because I was arguing with some people. I just like to, I don't even argue with people. I just like to get people riled up, and then I just disappear. Like I'll say something real quick, I'll throw something in there, and then I'll just bounce, and then everybody starts fighting and talking shit to each other. And that's it. I just leave it. And then something like that happened. And then I'm assuming somebody reported it because they removed it. And ever since that point on, like everything started falling. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And it's all back now. So we'll see how long it lasts.
Well, all good things come to an end. Let's just hope it takes a little bit longer.
Yep. All right. Well, I mean, we'll keep track of what's going on, and appreciate you stopping in again. It's time to go to the gym, I guess, and then eat something afterwards. So that's good. Yeah. So serialpapers.com, then the shows in February. We'll keep everybody posted on that as well. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate everybody stopping in. If you guys are checking us out, we were pretty hot and heavy here with shows like over the last month and a half. So appreciate everybody stopping in on a Thursday. One more day and we're in the weekend, so I'm sure everybody's looking forward to that. But yeah, for everybody checking in, if you guys aren't already a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button for us. Give us a thumbs up and all that good stuff. Helps out with the algorithms. You guys are on the go, like always. Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, at Truth Defender Podcasts. We are on Rumble as well. So I usually go and post the show. So we're actually live on Rumble now as well. So that's
really?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. Before you have to like pay, right?
Yeah. Well, I can never figure it out. I'm not the most, like I said, there's a reason my stuff's never edited. That's all I'm saying. I'm not technically.
Yeah, I got away from editing because it takes, not because I don't, it's just takes too long and it's expensive. Like I had a student account with Adobe, which was like $18 for the entire suite, which was great for like 2 years. And that finally came to an end. And then they were like, oh, we're going back to the regular $60 price. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So no more editing, no more of that stuff. Just whatever I do on here. And doesn't even, I don't redo anything. So I just post it up like on Spotify and all that stuff and just take it the way you get it. It's all good. But yeah, so all those places at Truth Defender Podcast, share the show with a friend, everybody except for work. We're still not there yet. I wouldn't be going to people that you work with and be like, oh, listen to this dude in Texas and he's pretty cool. And then you come on here and then you just hear us talking shit about whatever and you get in trouble. So let's not do that. Yeah, all the show links, all the links to the social media down below as well. Link trees as well, which has everything, even my personal Instagram account, which I mean, if you want to see what I kind of do on a daily basis, that's there. It's not show related or anything. So you guys can check that out as well. As always, questions or comments from myself, guest topic recommendations can be sent to thetruthdefender1776@gmail.com. Appreciate everybody stopping in on Thursday night. I hope everybody has a great start to the weekend tomorrow. Everybody stay safe out there. And always remember God, family, Texas. Have a good one, y'all.